Welcome back to the Cozy Corner podcast. We hope you've had a great week so far. It's been pretty busy over here for me, but things are going really well. How have you been, Gabby?
I've been doing really good. Pretty busy with like summer coming up, with like spring ending, with like planting. We're actually just got done with talking to a landscaper, which is really exciting. But obviously, as we both know, this is such a good time for me to like relax and do something really fun. So yeah, with last episode being our moms, that was really, really crazy and hilarious at the same time to edit. But yeah, I'm really happy to have season 2 back on its feet.
Great, me too. And today we actually have a special guest, somebody that is so close to me, my longest friend. We met back in first grade when we were
almost kindergarten.
Doing puzzles together. I don't know, sitting on the floor doing puzzles in first grade. That's what I remember.
Oh my gosh.
But I will let Alicia introduce herself so you guys can get to know her a little bit. So Alicia, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Alicia. When Darlene met me, I was Alicia Petruca, but I am now since married, and I'm Alicia Castetter. I am obviously a wife. I actually just celebrated my 7th wedding anniversary yesterday.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Yay.
And then I am a mother of 3. I have a bonus son. His name is Derek, and he is 8. And then 2 daughters. My oldest daughter is Maisie. She's about to turn 6, actually the day before Darlene's anniversary. And then my youngest daughter, Dakota, she is 3. She'll be 4 in August. So just busy running around, taking them to activities at church and sports and school stuff and working. I also work full time. So
what do you do?
I work for Ally Financial. So I'm a funder. What we do is we look at the contracts, like when you go to buy a car. We look at the contracts when they come in from the dealership and make sure that they are filled out correctly, all the figures are right, all the signatures are there. Like if a signature isn't there, we have to send it back and have the customer come back in and sign. So it's a pretty cool job. Trying to become an underwriter, which is the person that checks the credit and decides if you are able to buy a car. So
wow, that's awesome. And obviously you're working from home right now?
Yes, I've been working from home for a full year now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that must be nice to at least have like that time with the kids if they're home.
It
you can
is.
kind of, I mean, I'm sure I've heard a lot of parents be like, it is crazy, but I think there's like a blessing in it too.
Yes. Ever since they went back to school, it's been nice. But when we had to do homeschool, it was crazy.
Oh yeah,
So,
I bet. Wow.
I had to experience that one day with kids.
Yes, you did.
Working full time, but having like, remember, I think I said it in the podcast.
You did.
Yeah.
So props to all the moms out there, all the dads too.
Yes, for sure. So before we get into our topic for today, we want to keep a habit with all of our episodes with guests to ask them a welcome question. So Alicia, I want to say Alicia. I don't know why. Alicia.
Because that's Spanish.
Oh, is it?
It is.
That's how you say it in Spanish. Alicia.
Oh, okay, maybe that's why. Okay.
And it's the correct spelling for that too.
True. Yeah. When I'm like looking at your name on the script. Okay. So question for you is, where are you and what are you doing when you are most cozy?
So right now I am in Fort Worth in my home, sitting at my computer desk. But what am I doing when I'm most cozy? Probably curled up on the couch watching a movie with my kids and my husband.
Love.
That's probably the most cozy.
So romantic, family friendly.
Yes.
So cute.
What is your drink of choice whenever you're watching a movie?
Depends. Sometimes it's a glass of wine, but it doesn't matter. I like all kinds of wine, so it doesn't really matter which kind. But if it's not wine, then it's sweet tea.
Nice. Have you ever had spritzers? And I think it's like wine mixed with something, or is that?
Oh yeah, it is a spritzer.
That's a spritzer,
that's
right?
What it is. Wine. I mean, that's how my mom does it. She
mixed with like a Sprite or something.
Yeah.
Or like a. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've
That's
never
what I was
done that.
saying. My mom, that's what she does. Like she gets her wine and she puts Sprite in it. And at first I was like, that's weird. Just drink the wine. And my mom, she's like one that drinks red wine cold. You are not supposed to do that, but
But
love
some
you,
people
mom.
do it. The closest to red wine that I'll drink cold is like a rosé.
Oh, I love
Yep, same.
rosé. I just became so obsessed with it.
It's
So.
the best. It's my favorite too.
Okay, so moving on to our topic of discussion today, being an adult daughter. I think it's so interesting and something that not a lot of people talk about. Gabby and I were doing some research when we were brainstorming this topic, this idea, and really the only information that we could find was from the perspective of the mom or the dad, being an adult.
Parent. Parent
Being
of
a
an adult.
Yes,
Yes.
being a
Yeah.
parent to adult children. But we kind of want to switch that and being an adult child, I guess,
Yeah.
with your parents. And uh, when I did like a Google research, I literally typed being an adult daughter, and it was kind of sad seeing like all of the suggestions that came up. It was like, why is my grown daughter so mean to me? How to deal with a disrespectful grown child when your grown child hurts your feelings. So it's like these things that parents are researching on Google that
Are like desperate to find a answer.
yeah,
Yeah.
it seems kind of, to me, it seems sad. Like, I don't want my mom to be Googling that. Like, if I were to do something to my mom, I wouldn't want her to have to search for that on
Yeah.
Google, or I don't want to have my mom with those feelings that I was disrespectful to her or I hurt her feelings. So it's just kind of like interesting, this this topic that we're discussing today and how it's not really talked about.
Yeah. And now that we have, because me and Darlene, we're both not parents, but with Alicia, with you here, it's going to be nice to hear your point of view being in the position that we can align with you of being an adult daughter, but also being a mother yourself. So, but really in essence, we're all in 3 different stages because Darlene, you're married and you live with your husband and you live far away. And Alicia, you the same with kids. And then me, I'm kind of going into that. I'm in a serious relationship, but yeah, it's like all those stages I think look different from an adult daughter's point of view.
Yeah, exactly. We all have different perspectives because we're kind of at different stages in our, well, relationships, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, before, like, I think for us, it's like super, since we're women, I think that we relate more to our moms. So this is kind of talking about like the relationship with our moms, I guess, and being that adult daughter. I want to read an excerpt from an article on that I found from Psychology Today. It states, although mother daughter relationships are often idolized in our minds, in reality, they are frequently complex and surprisingly complicated. They are also highly varied. There are cultural differences in how mothers and daughters relate to one another as we get older. Every relationship between mom and daughter changes over time, but they also take many different forms, even within the same culture or the same family. So, as stated in that, it says every relationship between mom and daughter changes over time. And I think that's so true. For me, it wasn't until that I was preparing for my wedding and getting ready to get married to become a wife that my relationship with my mom changed significantly, but it was at the closest that it had ever been with my mom. So it was fun preparing for the wedding, doing all these girly things. So I guess that's just what brought us closer, and also the fact that I was getting married and I was moving out of the country, that I just wanted to spend every spitting second that I could with my mom, of course with my dad too, but
Yeah.
as we
Yeah.
stated, there's just this closer relationships that we do have with our moms. And so I don't know, I guess also the sense of becoming a wife too, because that's something more that I could relate with my mom. She had been a wife for 25 years. So I don't know. Did that happen to you too, Alicia? Was there like a significant change that you noticed?
So, yes, but not necessarily with my wedding because I had to get married so fast. I mean, we had planned to be married like a year after we actually got married. So,
Mhm.
I just told my mom, "You plan it all."
Oh wow.
Yeah, I like gave her the reins. I was like, it was like a 2-week plan.
Wow.
And so I just like, Mom, I trust you. I already have my dress. And I was like, you just plan the whole thing. And I was very grateful for that. But I feel like our relationship changed more when I got pregnant with Maisie.
Mhm.
And like, even though I was married, was still scared to tell my parents that I was pregnant.
What was that like?
Well, it was because we didn't like live on our own yet. Since we had to get married so quickly, we were living with his parents, but um, I don't know. I was like, I know I'm married, but how are they going to feel about me not being out on my own yet?
Mm.
And I mean, we both had jobs and we were both like paying our own bills and stuff like that, but we didn't have our own place. And so when I told her, she was excited. So that was nice. And then because it was her first grandchild anyway, like
Yeah.
not first biological grandchild because we already had Derek, but so she was happy and excited, and then immediately is like, "Oh, I got to get all this stuff," and she started
Aw.
getting stuff for Maisie and planning. I had 2 baby showers. My mom planned one, and then my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law planned one. But
Oh, wow. And does she live in town with you, or is she?
so when that first, like when back then, she still lived in Copper's Cove, and
Okay.
which is probably 2.5 hours from where I was where in Fort Worth, where I'm living.
Gotcha.
Where I have lived. But now she lives closer. She lives about an hour and a half away. But so she would come up whenever she could, but I'd mostly go down there more. But yeah, our relationship changed then, and while I was pregnant, it was fine. Like she was being real sweet and like getting stuff for the baby. But then when I had Maisie, I almost said Dakota. She's like, "Oh, you should do this way. Oh, when you were a baby, this is how I did things." And so it got a little frustrating.
Because you had
But
that your own mother like nature now within you that are like, no, I disagree. Yeah.
yes.
Wow.
I can
So
only imagine how that's going to be.
yeah.
I know.
Oh, I know. Well,
I guess that makes sense. I mean, because I see friends and their parents, and I never really think like, how did that dynamic change? Because, with me being the friend of my friend who has a kid, I'm like, oh, I'm just so excited. But no, it's so interesting hearing. And thank you for being honest, because I feel like it's okay that, that you disagreed with your mom. I definitely know I'm going to disagree with my mom. Like, yeah, for sure. So, wow,
yeah.
that's really awesome. And I feel like for me, because I'm in a serious relationship, which I feel like I'll get to that. I feel I'm in this space where I only live an hour away from my mom now. I was states away, but I was thinking about it, like, how has my journey been as I identify as a daughter? And I kind of broke it down into the childhood, adolescent, and now adulthood. So for my childhood, and I feel like all of us can relate, is our moms are this like mysterious person that like either punishes us because we've done something bad, or they give us love. And well, they always give us love, but like, or you get it's like a cause and effect. Like we're learning, we're growing, or we're literally like our brains are expanding. And so I always thought like my mom is either happy with me or mad with me. And I think that makes sense. Like it's very black and white, because you're just like, what do I do? And like, I'm in my own world. I'm like creating, I'm like, making messes everywhere and stuff. And my mom was always, I just have this memory of like, just looking at her, and yeah, it was like, she's a mystery. But then coming to adolescence, where so many people, so many stories, we all have gone through so much. For me, it definitely like the mystery got tainted, because I thought when I was an adolescent, like I was grown when I was definitely not, but I had this like ego that created for myself. Like my mind created this ego and created this establishment of like, I'm not just a blur. Like I am Gabby, I'm this, I'm that. I have these kind of friends, whatever. And that, I think my relationship with my mom was hot and cold. Like that would say my adolescent. I think overall, like it was, I would say I'm a pretty good kid. And like we had no like big things, but hot and cold would be like my adolescence. And then going into adulthood, which we're kind of going to get into, is like how being independent yet still a daughter, like I've had to navigate being aware of how I act or what I do or don't do affects my mom. And like, because me being an adult, like I'm realizing like what hurts my feelings, what do I like, learning love languages, like all that stuff. So for now, like me presently, I feel like me and my mom's relationship is just like communication and understanding each other of like where each other comes from. So like how to navigate. And I want to hear y'all's too. How do you navigate like now your present of having the best possible relationship?
So I just want to like touch base kind of back. I like how you did those 3 steps, like
Thanks.
childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. And I think that everybody can relate to that.
Right.
Especially in like in our teenagehood when we're like being so, I don't know, teenagers.
We know best. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just,
We think we're ready to go out on our own.
it's funny because now being a teacher, I see that in my students, like the teenager. Well, I don't have teenagers as students, but my husband does. And so it's just really funny because I think everyone can relate to that. But I guess, yeah, navigating this relationship with our moms, it will have, its ups and downs. And it definitely has, like I said. I was the closest with my mom whenever we did the wedding, and even after I had gotten married and all of this stuff. But I think like as the years go on and me being away, not that we're not as close, it's just allowing my mom to, I guess, well, not allowing her, but trying to teach her to understand that I am an adult now. I am independent. I'm married. I have my new family, So that's really what I'm trying to navigate in this moment. It's still a constant battle.
It's
Not
like the hard truths.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it's a battle because I call my mom every day. We talk every single day, but it's just like little things that, little comments that she would make for her to be close to home. And so it's just that is like the thing that we're trying to work with. But I always am trying to give my mom, my dad, the utmost respect because they have sacrificed so much for me and my sisters. And I respect everything that they had given us. They didn't have to give us everything that they did. And so now being on my own and being an adult, being a wife, I see the challenges that a couple could face. And especially having 3 daughters, that just brings on, more challenges. So in that, for me, I know that I just need to respect my parents, and there's no need to have an argument about things because they are the way that they are, and I am going to respect them the way that they are, and I can't change them. So anyway, it's just, this challenge of wanting to make them proud, yet letting them know that I'm here and I'm happy and I'm independent and I'm married, I'm in my own family. So anyway, it's just, an ongoing journey.
Cycle.
That's our favorite word.
Journey.
But yeah, so that's kind of my story.
It's funny that you say that. Oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna like bring it into have your what do you think? Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Darlene, because how your parents, you respect them. I like as a teenager, I pushed back and hard so much. I like gave my parents a really rough time when I was a teenager. And no, I wasn't a bad kid. Like
Yeah.
you said, Gabby, but
Mhm.
I just wanted to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And I thought having my own phone and my car and a job gave me the right to do that, but obviously no, it didn't. And I
Mhm.
know that. And I knew that then, but you know,
Yeah.
teenagers. But
Exactly.
I now when my mom gets upset about something or like we were just having a conversation a couple weeks ago about how I wasn't sure if I wanted to do what I was doing now. And she was like, well, you realize I had dreams and goals too, but I had to give them up for you. And I'm like, I
Yikes.
understand that, Mom. Like, I'm I'm just telling you how I feel right now. Like, and my mom and my dad that same morning while I was at church had gotten into an argument. So she was already like aggravated. And so she just kind of took it out on me, the aggravation with my dad.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, mom, I understand that. I was like, but like, I'm just trying to tell you how I feel right now. And um, she hung up on me. She didn't like what I said. Like, she didn't like that I had like started crying and I was like, I'm just having a really hard time right now and I just need my mom. And
Yeah.
she like hung up on me. And so she texted me like this big long thing and then like sent me a couple of Bible verses and I just
Oh.
instead of like answering back to her long thing, I just told her I loved her. Like I used to like argue back, but I don't anymore. I've like kind of gotten to this point in my life where I don't really have the energy for that anymore. It with
Yeah.
anyone, but especially with my parents. And so I just kind of like let it go and um I just told her I loved her
Hmm.
and then like a couple days later she called me and asked me if I was doing better. But and I asked her how she was. But my sister had talked to her before and she had already updated me on it. But
Right. So what I
um
hear is that you practice a lot of patience. That's how you navigate.
yes, I do.
Yeah. No, that's, and I think so many people would think, oh, you're a parent, you got to be patient with your kids, because you don't want to step on their toes. But I feel like just as much right for an adult child, adult daughter to be like, okay, I'm living my life and I don't need what you're throwing at me. Like, yeah. So
Mhm.
I commend you. Yeah. Patience is
Yeah,
hard.
we
Thanks.
have to remember that we're all adults here and we
Mhm.
have to take things maturely. So I love that.
Yeah.
Um, so Alicia, you being a mom, you have the view of both sides. I mean, of course, your children are not adults, but but you do have children on your own. So how is that? I don't know. How has that like changed your perspective now being a mom, in within how your mom raised y'all, or
Mhm.
that relationship that you have between your mom and you? How has that shifted once you started having kids on your
So,
own?
Well, I will say that, y- I had said she was like, well, I gave up a lot of my dreams. And well, I do understand that because my
Mm-hmm.
life is definitely not the way that I had planned it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we, I mean, we've been married for 7 years and we still don't own our own home, but we are finally in a nice, like, rental home. So I understand, like, my parents, they sacrificed a lot for us. And that same thing that my husband and I are doing, we're sacrificing for our children. And
Mm-hmm.
we did like make a huge change a year ago. My husband got let go. He was a manager on the border and he was one of the first ones to be let go because he was he made the most like under the GM.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was
mm,
like, well, do I go back to the restaurant industry or do I get a new job? And so we decided that he'd go get a job that was 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and weekends off, but it was a $20,000 pay cut a year. So we made that sacrifice so we can have more time as a family. Um, so I appreciate it, made me appreciate that with my mother and my
mhm.
father.
Yeah.
Because my mom did, she sacrificed a lot. She could have, I mean, she was an like she went to school to be an artist, and she ended up becoming a preschool teacher so she could spend more time with us. So I definitely do understand and appreciate that now being a mother. And same with my daughters, like the attitude and because it
They're
starts
not even
young.
teenagers.
Yeah,
I
and
know
like,
the attitude.
my question is like, how do you take that? Like, are you like in that moment, are you like, okay, I'm going to learn and try to see it? Or are you just like, you know what, this is impulsive. Like, it's probably hard, right?
It's very hard. A lot of my, I try to practice patience, but it's hard. It's really hard to practice patience after you've been working all day and you've been on the phone all like on and off all day with like I deal with dealerships with F&I guys, and so they're not always very nice. And
Oh.
so I do like I find myself sometimes like yelling at them for like something small, and I'm like, okay, what am I doing?
Right.
And then so I make sure that I go to them and I tell them, look, I'm sorry. I've had a long day and it just put me over the top.
Right.
But I make sure to like communicate with my children, and because my mom did that, but not every time. And so I tried to learn from that, because I
For
mean,
sure.
You need to have grace and patience. And it was hard for my mom because she was a preschool teacher and she dealt with little ones all day, every day. And so her patience was already thin by the time she came home.
Exactly.
Wow.
I think that's just going to be forever. Like, we're going to learn from our parents. We're going to try to change the way that we were raised, so that our children, I don't know, so that we can.
And there's no
raise
shame
them
in
the way
that.
No, exactly. And I'm saying like our children are going to do the exact same thing. I didn't like the way that my mom did that, so I'm not going to do that to my kids. You know, I was like listening to my mom. I think in the last podcast she mentioned something about like things that her mom didn't do.
Yeah.
So then she did it with us. So I think, yeah, it's just going to be forever and ever, never ending, that we're learning from our parents so that we can improve, and then our children will just do the same thing.
Right. So we've talked about navigating our relationships and all of that and what it encompasses. I think there's obviously lessons to be learned, and forever there's always going to be learned, because it's a journey.
We should name our podcast the Journey Podcast.
Journey.
I love it.
Oh my gosh. So I literally laughed when I was like, had to fill in what lessons have I learned being an adult daughter with my mother. And it kind of like goes back for me from the big quote of my mother saying, well, the quote happened after we were going in the pantry for something. I was in high school, and she said something from what I thought was lame. And I was like, Mom, shut up. And that did not fly. My mom says infamously, I am not your friend. I am your mother. And, you know, she uses it to this day, which is, it's like cloudy, because sometimes I'm like, I can literally say, shut up, Mom. And like, we'll be like cute and fun. But then there's just like testing the boundary. It's like, because, you know, as I'm growing, she's growing, and she's, you know, it's definitely just like how my ego which ego I want to like also preface, like ego is not bad. Like ego is just like who we are. And it's like it's our sassiness, whatever. So, and my mom, as y'all knew, my mom has like a big ego. Like she's very sassy and I love it. We're both very vocal, and that's kind of like, we're very twinsies in that way. But for me, it's just always like testing that, and not like pushing it, but like, because sometimes I push and I don't know I pushed it. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. Like, because there were moments where, you know, in that Google search, Darlene, that you did, where a parent's like, why is my daughter being mean to me? Or like, why, I don't know what the other one was. It says, when your grown child hurts your feelings. Like, there have been really hard discussions that me and my mom have had. And I'm so glad that we had them, where I hurt her feelings and I didn't know. Like, I just thought I, you know, could maybe get away with it. Or I just thought like I was being funny or sarcastic, and no, like it hurt her feelings. Like we've had to have really good sit down conversations where it's like, this is my boundary. And maybe it's not always, but this is like where I'm at right now. And I think that helped a lot of like because I think the same for me. I think with me, my mom, it's like, I think sometimes I end up treating her like a grandma, which sometimes it's funny and I can get away with it and it's fine. But then sometimes it's like where it's like time and manner. It's like where we are. Like, I don't want to, like, I'm never going to, now I know never to do that in front of her friends, because that my mom holds me and my sister up to such a high platform, like, and her friends, I'm so happy that they love us just the same. So yeah, like I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I just definitely like want to always practice knowing where my mom's at. And like, even just last night we had, and it was hard because it was uncomfortable for me, but I know she needed to tell me, and I'm glad she did, rather than like suppressing it. It was like a lot of stuff with me and Brett, you know, we, are gonna, like, I've told my mom, like, I'm going to have children with this man, like I'm going to marry him, like that's our plan. And just having like those hard truths and hard conversations, and encompassing all of that with just like boundaries. It's like anyone you would do a peer, but at the same time, it's like your parent, if that makes sense. So those are my lessons that I just continually will learn. And I feel like I'm really emotional. So I feel like me as mother, oh God, I can't even imagine. Like I'm going to be so sensitive, but it's like, I'm really interested, Alicia, to hear what you have to say. But first, Darlene, what lessons have you learned?
I like how I think that's so important that our moms should tell us like the boundaries that she has, or like whenever we do hurt her feelings. My mom, she's very sensitive, and I get that from her. I'm a super sensitive person too. So when I do hurt her feelings, I just know, because
she can't hide it.
Yeah. We cannot hide our emotions, which that's something I'm working on. Honestly, I'm working on that, trying to like build a backbone so I can, be a little bit more tough. But yeah, so I think that that's really important that moms, I mean, that's something that I want to try to do with my children, as our relationship grows and they get older, that we are their mom. And like I said earlier, I want to respect my parents. So it's important that we keep that respect, because they are our elders. They are our parents. They are the ones that raised us. So very good point, Gabby.
Thanks.
For me, my lessons I've learned during this journey, which I'm still learning. I said journey again. I guess, as I mentioned before, my perspective from a wife's point of view, I have learned a lot. And I have learned, the reasons why my parents have these emotions within each other. You just learn those things becoming a wife, and being able to relate to my mom in those things. Also, as an adult, I think it's also important that I've learned that knowing it's okay to still need our parents, even though that we're on our own, we're individuals, we are independent. It's important to know that it's okay to still need them. I still need my parents for many things, not just physical things, but also, not physical, I mean material things, but also, for them to call me. Yeah, emotional, to have the talks that we've always had growing up, or like, I don't know, just the moments together. It's important to remember that. I think you're always going to need your mom. That's like one of the, I don't know, like a very famous quote or whatever, that you always need your mom. Like Alicia said earlier, she just wanted her mom in that moment.
Yes.
And the last thing is something that I already mentioned, just that the way that our parents were raised and the way that we were raised was probably different. And that cycle is just going to keep on going throughout the generations. And so we just have to respect our parents, I think, and just try and do what we think is best as adult children.
Right.
Yeah.
And Alicia, so you mentioned a little bit of, based on that example, that what you're learning is patience and stuff, but what else can you say, like in your position, being a daughter and a mom at the same time, what lessons can you say can be learned from that?
So probably also disciplining my children. Like my mom told me, kind of like I'm going into the generational th- things of like how my grandma raised my mom. My grandma was hardcore.
Mm.
Like you had to use your manners. You had to sit when you're sitting at the table, you had to have everything a certain way and like like if you got in trouble, you were like in big trouble. And my mom changed that. She was like, I don't want to be that way with you, but she was still very strict. So what I've kind of learned my lesson from that. I'm trying to kind of like be in the middle, kind of like I want to be strict, but I don't want to be way too strict where I rebel or where my children rebel.
They run all
Because
over you. Mm-hmm.
yes, and like because if you're really strict, they will rebel, but you also don't want to be too lenient because they will also
They'll think you're their best friend.
yes, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not my children's best friend. I'm their mother, like you said,
Mm.
with your mother told you. So that's a lesson that I've learned that I'm trying to navigate around. Also with the whole waiting for marriage thing, I'm trying to like navigate that where like my mom barely talked to me about anything.
Mm.
And so I'm trying to kind of like but my husband's parents talked about everything.
At a young,
And
like, so he knew from a young age, like all the ins and outs when you were kind of more maybe left in the dark with it.
yes. And so I also want to meet in the middle with that. I've kind of learned
Right.
a lesson on that aspect because that's a big aspect. Like
Mm.
you don't want your children doing things behind your back when they're teenagers, when they're adolescents. So that's kind of a big, huge lesson that I've been still learning. Like
Yeah.
going back to how I was raised, then taking in my husband's parents, how they did it, and trying to find something that's going to work for us.
I think also you
So
just like, it reminded me that like you're not only a daughter for your parents biologically, but you're also a daughter for your husband's parents. You know what I mean? You're a daughter-in-law. Like that's, so yeah, that is like a double, I didn't even think about
double
that.
whammy.
Double
Because
whammy.
sometimes it's harder being a daughter-in-law than it is being a daughter.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that is some truth. Mm.
especially when kids come into the mix.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
like
Definitely.
when you get married, it is, but for like it's a huge difference. It's like almost like a shock because
Wow.
they have these thoughts on how you should act as a married couple.
Mhm.
So you're getting it from your parents and your in-laws.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's
It's like not only do you have like now we have social media that we compare our lives. It's like now we have, our parents, and yeah, it's a lot. I
and then
would
you
love
add
to,
in the grandparents.
yes. Oh my gosh. I could talk about, I have like literally so many questions that I could talk like a whole, just like Alicia being parenting 101, like I need to know everything. That's so true though. And now in conclusion, why it's all going to be okay in the end. And the biggest thing I think all of us can relate to is not having high expectations and not putting high expectations on ourselves or on our children too. You know what I mean? I think there's so many parents and we have peers that my parent had high expectations and I feel like a disappointment. Like that's a negative cycle that should not even have started because of high expectations. And just being grateful no matter, because I feel like where I'm at, I can easily think the grass is greener somewhere else. Where Darlene's at, you could always think the grass is greener. And Alicia, for you, the same. But it's so not greener because there's always going to be something that someone has that they kind of wish maybe was different, or maybe they wish, you know what I mean? Like it's a puzzle. And I think I know that we are all grateful, but so for the people that are listening, yeah, just like let that sink in. And like, if you have any, comments on this episode, also, I just want to do a plug. Please message us on Instagram. We would love to hear from you and hear your stories. We didn't really get a lot of that season 1, probably because we had not that many followers, but I feel like we've grown. So anyways, that's
welcome to all the new listeners, by the way. It's everything in the end is going to be okay. That's what I love. That's like my favorite quote my mom always told me. I just loved whenever she told me everything is going to be okay. That always put me at peace, even though you know, even if like I didn't like see the solution yet,
Mm.
her just telling me that just put me at peace. So remember that your journey and your relationship with your parents, just keep on trucking, and you know, you got this.
That's the most Texas thing you've ever said. Keep
Really?
on trucking.
Well, she was just in Texas for 3 months.
That is true.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I can't believe I'm back in Guatemala already. And
I know.
well, anyway. So, well, thank you, Alicia, so much for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for
been
having me.
So fun. Are there any final comments or thoughts that you like to leave for this episode?
Not that I can think of right now.
Very good.
Well, thank you for.
I enjoyed joining in on the podcast. I've listened to most of them. I'm a little behind. I need to finish. I think I have like 2 left from last season to listen to.
Awesome.
No worries. Thank you for being honest and being vulnerable
course.
with us. It means a lot. And it was so awesome to hear your point of view on things.
Of course. I appreciate your time and just listening.
We do the
thank
same.
you.
We do the same.
Yes.
To finish this episode, we're going to leave you with an intention for the week. We want you to figure out your parents' love language, whether that's writing them a letter, talking to them in person, over the phone. Just try to start a conversation with your parents about these areas that you feel you're struggling in, you're misunderstanding them, and I hope that you get something from it.
I know that this can sound intimidating, but we do encourage you to step out of your comfort zone and work towards a better life for you and your family.
Thank you so much for joining us this week in our second episode of season 2. You will be able to find our podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Make sure you subscribe to come back for more.
And we'd love to hear from you. Do you have any topic ideas or guests you like on our show? Let us know. You can email us at thecozycornerpod@gmail.com or message us on Instagram at the.cozycornerpod.
We hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to y'all next Wednesday. Take care. God bless, and adios, amigos.
Adios.
Bye.